What is the role of the blues in American music? Well, to answer that, I would like to take two excerpts, one from Ramsey Lewis's program for PBS called The Legends of Jazz, in which he talked about the blues. And I'm going to follow that from a selection from Ken Burns' PBS series called Jazz, about the importance of the blues in American music.
The blues, born in the South from the spirituals and work songs, the blood and the tears of African slaves, the blues lies at the root of just about all American music. This much is true. Without the blues, there would be no jazz. W.C. Handy came out of Memphis and brought the blues to mainstream American music. In 1917, the first jazz record ever made was, in fact, a blues song, Livery Stable Blues by the original Dixieland Jazz Band. Many artists kept one foot in the blues and the other in jazz. Like Bessie Smith, the Empress of the Blues. And Sippy Wallace, Ma Rainey, and of course, Alberta Hunter. Then came Robert Johnson, a giant figure in music who influenced everything from blues to rock to jazz. And Lady Day, the great Billie Holiday. She could sing the blues, but she was also one of the great jazz divas. The big band sound drew heavily from the blues. Just listen, well, to Duke Ellington or Count Basie. In the 40s and 50s, a crop of blues masters arose in Chicago and Detroit, like Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Willie Dixon, and John Lee Hooker. The blues kept moving in new directions due to artists like Ray Charles, B.B. King, and Joe Williams. And so many other jazz greats like Miles Davis, Horace Silver, Cannonball Adderley, Sonny Stitt, Hank Crawford proved the never-ending influence of blues on the jazz world.
Over the next century, the blues would become the underground aquifer that would feed all the streams of American music, including jazz.
Now, so that things don't get too heavy, I would like to lighten things up a little bit with a comment from Joe Strummer, who was a member of the group called The Clash, a rock and roll group. And so here's what Joe Strummer had to say about the blues.
Everything that I've heard in my life is rooted in the blues, except Johann Sebastian Bach.
Okay, so maybe Johann Sebastian Bach wasn't influenced by the blues. Joe Strummer is right. But Chuck Berry had a song anyway, Roll Over Beethoven. He wanted to tell Beethoven about the blues and rock and roll. Now, the next selection is from the series Jazz by Ken Burns, the one that I mentioned for PBS. And there's an African-American writer called Gerald Early who has a comment about the importance of the blues to him and to African-Americans in general.
I play a lot of music for my children, but I think the music that I play for them that I most want them to listen to is blues. There's something about blues as an expression of the human condition that is just so powerful. If there was no Ralph Ellison, there was no Harlem Renaissance, no Marcus Garvey, no Elijah Muhammad, no Frederick Douglass, black people hadn't achieved anything else on this earth but just the creation of blues. It would still make black people a similarly important people in the creation of the modern world.
The final clip that I have is from Wynton Marsalis in the series Jazz, once again from Ken Burns. And he wonders what would happen if the Martians came down. What would they think of the blues?
I think that when the Martians come down here, and they start attacking people, they're gonna look for everybody who can play some blues. They're gonna say, now who can play some blues? Because we need that feeling up here. And if you can't play the blues, well, they might zap you, you know. But if you can play some blues, you pull your horn out, they'll say, okay, you can come in.
So there you have it. If you don't want to get zapped by the Martians, learn how to play the blues. Now I'd like to focus on my trip to see Piano C. Red in his nursing home. And the reason he is there is because about 2.5 years ago, he had his car carjacked, and tragically he was shot and paralyzed from the waist down. But he didn't let it crush his spirit. And even last year I went to Maxwell Street and had a DVD about him. He came back for one Sunday and played at Junior Sports Lounge. And so now it's time to go and see Piano C. Red.